Hi guys, good day. Okay, so today we're going to chat about cortisol. So I feel like cortisol is one of those words that's been thrown around, and it's like we don't really know this is bad, but we're like, oh my god, cortisol is bad. Like I'm going to gain weight, cortisol, cortisol. So it's like, okay, let's chat about it. So cortisol really on a short-term thing is wonderful. It's needed. It's so smart. Your body's so smart. Basically, because cortisol's primary function is to just increase the blood glucose levels to like provide fuel to your muscles and your brain in a stressful situation. Okay, so if you think about it, if you're getting chased down the street and then you need like that's your focus right now, like you need lots of like blood glucose going to your brain and being like, okay, problem solving, what am I gonna do? Needs like muscles function to escape, right? So it's like stressful situation, this and muscles, boom, that's what we need. That's the only focus that's needed at the moment, right? So everything else kind of gets shuts down, right? So it increases the glucose in your bloodstream. It impacts your immune response, right? Because at the time, it's like we don't need to be like worrying about our health right now, like her to defend ourselves from stuff. It's like literally like that's the main function right now. So we shut this down. And then it alters the brain response to stress, right? So you probably get more clear on like survival, what you need to do, right? So yeah, you're gonna increase the blood sugar usage is gonna be increased, right? So it's gonna be more efficient. On the other hand, too, like what's gonna happen is it's gonna slow down the growth process, right? So you're not gonna be building muscles as you're escaping from a stressful situation, right? So basically, the cortisol level is meant to be helping you in a stressful situation. Super good, right? We need that. And then a good cortisol pattern really like it's like slowly increase in the morning, 3-4 a.m. like it's kind of starts rising, and then around like 6, 7, 8, 9, like it's like super good, super high, and then it slowly come down, right, to allow you to have a really easy sleep at night and not being like fighting to fall asleep. But that's like a really healthy cortisol pattern, right? So you feel awake through the day and then you sleep easily at night. So that's a sign that you have a good cortisol level. So when it becomes a little bit like bad is when it becomes excessive cortisol, right? So if we constantly are under stress, if we're like we do a lot of high intensity workouts, we're in a calorie deficit, so we're not eating enough to support all of this. We're constantly stressed with like chronic stress, right? Like it's always something, so what happens is eventually like that constant fight or flight and whatever, so it becomes an excessive cortisol, right? So excessive cortisol eventually leads to weight gain, acne, your skin is thinning, you have headaches, you're bruising easily, you have poor like wound healing. So let's say like you cut yourself, it takes forever to heal. You have muscle weakness, it's not repairing, you're irritable, you're like also really susceptible to get sick all the time. So that's where like excessive cortisol is not the greatest, right? This is where we're like, okay, so we need to work on that. And when I start working with people, I often like tell them to quit coffee in the first 90 minutes when they wake up, right? Because most people will go to coffee right away as soon as they wake up, and caffeine just impacts the level of cortisol, right? So you have more cortisol, which doesn't really help you. So it kind of messes up your cortisol pattern. So what I found is like, so you won't wake up as good naturally, and then it's going to be weird. And then around like 1 p.m. you're going to have that drop of energy, and you're going to need more coffee, more food. You're going to reach for like the sugars, the fats, the quick like energy faster if your cortisol patterns are a little bit out of whack, right? So I often, if not in every email I send, I really suggest that, because I found that for myself, to get the best caffeine kick, it was not first thing in the morning. It's a little bit later. And if you're not believing me, just try it. And I know everyone's like, I love my coffee, I need my coffee. Get it? I was on that team for 10 years. Really happy with my decision of not doing that anymore, though. The other thing that it does is like, you probably have noticed, like if you ever woke up at like 3 in the morning, like several nights in a row, and then you have like this like anxiety and you can't fall back asleep, and you have this depression, and it's weird, like, and you have to start thinking about lots of stuff, right? Like we joke around, it's like, oh, where's about the stuff that you think at 3 in the morning, but it's really because you have zero like emotional regulation at that time, right? So, and I do actually really blame the cortisol level for this. So I don't know, I might be wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure. So that's the excessive cortisol, right? And then we have low cortisol, which other people also can maybe refer to adrenal fatigue, which I don't think is as much as a thing as low cortisol. So low cortisol is basically, you'll feel it you have a difficulty staying asleep, right? You'll wake up often. You're gonna be dizzy when you stand up. You're gonna have blurred vision, shakiness, a bit of a brain fog, I would say, some depression and all that stuff. So I would say this is more low cortisol, and I would say also that you're not healing your wounds the same way and all that stuff. So low cortisol is another thing too, and like, how do we fix that? Like, how do we bring back our cortisol patterns in a healthy way? Well, yeah, first of all, like the coffee, right? Maybe wait 90 minutes before you drink your first coffee. Also, make sure you're not in calorie deficit all the time. So if you're training a lot, make sure that your food intake is enough to back everything up training land, especially if you do a lot of high intensity training, a lot of CrossFit. You need to make sure that you have enough carbohydrates to back all of that up, and that you're sleeping enough, that you're recovering enough, that you are like managing your stress. Go to therapy, do some breathing, journal, talk, like, let's get this out, right? There's also a few supplements. I'm not going to get down that road because I feel like this is, if you're there, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is me, I kind of really did my job in terms of like, okay, what's going on? What can I do? So this is probably your cue to be like, hey, let's go see my doctor, my naturopath, my nurse practitioner to see how I can help my stress hormones, right? So your adrenals. So that's the thing with cortisol. Again, really, really good on the short term and not so good on the long terms, right? So that's where it becomes bad, right? Because if you think about it, if you're constantly only focusing on stress or fight or flight, like if you're only focusing on that, everything else, your immune system is gone. You're not building muscles as easily, so basically eventually your metabolism is not going to be able to do its thing, right? Because the more muscle, more calories you're burning all the time. So if you can't build muscles, then it's going to affect that. It's going to affect your mental health. Like, you're going to be depressed, you're going to be anxious. And then you're going to feel like that helplessness that you can't just never get ahead, right? So all of that stuff is stress regulation, emotion regulation. So honestly, like, one good way to do that is really simple. It's just to sleep more and to exercise more and strength. Walk every day. That's going to really help going from fight or flight to your parasympathetic system, like the rest and digest, right? That's going to be really helpful. We're going to talk about that a bit later. But so those are a few things that you can do. But honestly, if I was able to just being like, oh, okay, so cortisol is not bad, it's good, and maybe I have excessive cortisol, that's your cue. Just book with your doctor, with your practitioner, maybe find a nutrition coach like me to maybe can help you regulate what you're supposed to be eating and how much, and to help with your quest of health. So that's what I have to do today. I hope this was helpful, and have any questions, you can drop them down.